भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा इतिपिसो भगवारहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो विद्याचरण संपन्नो सुगतो लोकविदु अनुत्तरो पुरिसदम्मसारथि सत्ता देवमनुष्याणां बुद्धो भगवाति नमो तस्स सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा ये च बुद्धा अतीता च ये च बुद्धा अनागता पच्युत्पन्ना च ये बुद्धा अहं वन्दामि सब्बदा नत्ति मे शरणं गण्यं बुद्धो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम् उत्तमं येन वन्देऽहं पादपंसो वरुत्तमं बुद्धेयो कलितो दोषो बुद्धो कमतु तं मम बुद्धं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि स्वाकातो भगवता धम्मो संदिटीको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको अपनायको पच्छतं वेदितव्यो विन्नुहीति नमो तस्सनियानिकस धम्मसा ये च धम्मा अतीता च ये च धम्मा अनागता पच्युत्पन्ना च ये धम्मा अहं वन्दामि सब्बदा नत्ति मे शरणं गण्यं धम्मो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम् उत्तमंगेन वन्देऽहं धम्मं च त्रिविदुत्तमं धम्मेयो कलितो दोषो धम्मो कमतु तं मम अधम्मं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावकसंगो उजुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावकसंगो न्यायपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावकसंगो सामीचिपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावकसंगो यदिदं चत्तारि पुरिसयुगानि अट्टपुरिसपुग्गल एषा भगवतो सावकसंगो आहुनेयो पाहुनेयो दक्षिणेयो अञ्जलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्यकेतं लोकस्साति नमो तस्स अट्ट अर्यपुग्गला महासंगस्सा ये च संगा अतीता च ये च संगा अनागता पच्युत्पन्ना च ये संगा अहं वन्दामि सब्बदा नत्ति मे शरणं गण्यं संगो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम् उत्तमङ्गेन वन्देऽहं संगं च त्रिविदुत्तमम् संज्ञेयो कलितो दोषो संगो कमतु तं मम संगं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि विपट्टि पटिवाहाय सब्ब संपत्ति सिद्धिया सब्ब दुःखं विनाशाय सब्ब भयं विनाशाय सब्ब रोगं विनाशाय भवेदीगायुकदायक सब्ब लोकं हितत्ताय परितं तं बनामहे समन्ता चक्रवालेषु अत्र गच्छन्तु देवता तद्धम्मं मुनिराजसा शृण्वन्तु सर्गमोक्तम् धम्मश्रवणकालो अयं बदन्ता धम्मश्रवणकालो अयं बदन्ता परित्तश्रवणकालो अयं बदन्ता नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा कथंचपन भिक्खवे भिक्खु धम्मेषु धम्मानुपस्सी विहरति इद भिक्खवे भिक्खु धम्मेषु धम्मानुपस्सी विहरति पंचसु निवर्णेषु कथंचपन भिक्खवे भिक्खु धम्मेषु धम्मानुपस्सी विहरति पंचसु निवर्णेषु इद भिक्खवे भिक्खु संतं वा अज्जतं कामच्छन्दं अति मे अज्जतं कामच्छन्दोति पजानाति असंतं वा अज्जतं कामच्छन्दं अति मे अज्जतं कामच्छन्दोति पजानाति यथा च अनुत्पन्नस्य कामच्छन्दस्य उत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति यथा च उत्पन्नस्य कामच्छन्दस्य पहानं होति तञ्च पजानाति यथा च पहीनस्य कामच्छन्दस्य आयतिं अनुत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति संतं वा अज्जतं व्यापादं अति मे अज्जतं व्यापादोति पजानाति असंतं वा अज्जतं व्यापादं अति मे अज्जतं व्यापादोति पजानाति यथा च अनुत्पन्नस्य व्यापादस्य उत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति यथा च उत्पन्नस्य व्यापादस्य पहानं होति तञ्च पजानाति यथा च पहीनस्य व्यापादस्य आयतिं अनुत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति संतं वा अज्जतं तिनमिद्धं अति मे अज्जतं तिनमिद्धन्ति पजानाति असंतं वा अज्जतं तिनमिद्धं नत्ति मे अज्जतं तिनमिद्धन्ति पजानाति यथा च अनुत्पन्नस्य तिनमिद्धस्य उत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति यथा च उत्पन्नस्य तिनमिद्धस्य पहानं होति तञ्च पजानाति यथा च पहीनस्य तिनमिद्धस्य आयतिं अनुत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति संतं वा अज्जतं उद्धच्च कुक्कुच्छं अति मे अज्जतं उद्धच्च कुच्छन्ति पजानाति असंतं वा अज्जतं उद्दच्च कुक्कुच्चं नत्थि में अज्जतं उद्दच्च कुक्कुच्छन्ति पजानाति यथा च अनुत्पन्नस्य उद्दच्च कुक्कुच्चस्य उत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति यथा च उत्पन्नस्य उद्दच्च कुक्कुच्चस्य पहानं होति तञ्च पजानाति यथा च पहीनस्य उद्दच्च कुक्कुच्चस्य आयतिं अनुत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति संतं वा अज्जतं विचिकिच्छं अत्थि में अज्जतं विचिकिच्छाति पजानाति असंतं वा अज्जतं विचिकिच्छं नत्थि में अज्जतं विचिकिच्छाति पजानाति यथा च अनुत्पन्नाय विचिकिच्छाय उत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति तथा च उत्पन्नाय विचिकिच्छाय पहानं होति तञ्च पजानाति यथा च पहीनाय विचिकिच्छाय आयतिं अनुत्पादो होति तञ्च पजानाति इति अज्जत्तं वा धम्मेषु धम्मानुपस्सी विहरति बहिद्धा वा धम्मेषु धम्मानुपस्सी विहरति अज्जत् बहिद्धा वा धम्मेषु धम्मानुपस्सी विहरति समुदय धम्मानुपस्सी वा धम्मेषु विहरति वय धम्मानुपस्सी वा धम्मेषु विहरति समुदय वय धम्मानुपस्सी वा धम्मेषु विहरति अत्ति धम्माति वापनस्य सतिपच्युपत्तिटा होति यावदेव ज्ञानमत्ताय पठिसति मत्ताय अनिश्चितो च विहरति न च किंचि लोके उपादीयति एवं पिको भिक्कवे भिक्खु धम्मेषु धम्मानुपस्सी विहरति पंचसु निवर्णेषु एतेन सच्चवज्जेन सोतिनो होतु सम्पदा एतेन सच्चवज्जेन होतिनो जय मंगलम् एतेन सच्चवज्जेन पाप्नो रत्नत्रयम् सब्बित्यो विवज्जन्तु सब्बरोगो विनश्यतु माथे भवत्वन्तरायो सुखी दीर्घायुको भवतु सब्बमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सब्बदेवता सब्बबुद्धानुभावेन सब्बधम्मानुभावेन सब्बसङ्गानुभावेन सदा सोत्ति भवन्तु ते इमिना पुण्याकम्येन मामे बालसमागमो शतं समागमो होतु यावन्निब्बानपत्या इदं मे पुण्याकमं आसवकयं वहं होतु सब्ब दुःखापमुच्यतु निब्बान संपच्चयो होतु sadhu. So this today's topic, so it's about what is called guilt. But also remorse. Let us see the difference between or the connection between the guilt and remorse and how they arise, what are the causes and the causal factors and the causal conditions, causal situations that will make us to feel guilty, to develop this remorse, to develop this worry. So what are the different causes, different causal factors, causal conditions, causal situations that make us feel guilty, feel that worrisomeness, feel that remorse? And then what are the measures that one should go through, one should take up to come out of this guilt and remorse? What are the preventive measures? What are the curative measures? Like say, preventive measures means like just see that you do something so that you will not create guilt and remorse in your mind. You prevent the guilt and remorse not to arise in the mind. And what are the curative measures? Taking some kind of measures which will dissolve or which will cure or which will give solution to your guilt and remorse, and you will come out of that guilt and remorse. They are called curative. Curative means like which will cure, which are already developed. Your mind has already developed, created the guilt and remorse. So by taking some medicine or say by taking some measures, you will come out of that kind of guilt and remorse. Like say doing something so you can melt, you can come out of, you can dissolve, you can reduce, you can nullify those thoughts of guilt and remorse. So that's what we are going to discuss today. And we give, of course, a little bit of, say now a lot of research, as I was telling you, people are so much bothered about mental health and the causes for mental health and the remedies for mental health. So much of work is going on. A lot of medicines, lot of psychotherapy, lot of techniques, and lot of say strategies or techniques are absorbed from other from religious say sources also. And what is Buddha's approach, Buddha's way of looking at this guilt? What are the measures recommended by Buddha to solve this, to handle this guilt and remorse? And it is actually very, very a deep-rooted defilement, just like your jealousy. To note this, to trace this, to understand this, it requires a really what is called a deep, say, attention towards your own mind, uh, deeper analysis, deeper understanding of your mind processes. It's very much required because it is like a deep-rooted defilement, deep-rooted issue. This guilt. If it is ignored, if you don't give some attention to why this guilt arises, how to handle this guilt, and what are the causes, causal factors of this guilt, and if you don't give some attention to this, then it will become subconscious. It will become like say deep-rooted defilement, which will affect you all the time, and it will have its repercussions. Maybe even it will be carried to the subsequent lives also. So that much deep-rooted it becomes if it is ignored, if it is neglected. This guilt and remorse. So that is the topic, today's topic. And why this chanting, how this chanting is related to our today's topic. So this chanting is about like the Dhammanupasana, like say aware of the mind, aware of the mental factors, aware of the Dhammas. Dhammas means the natural factors of the mind, the natural flow of the mind, the natural thought processes of the mind. So they are called the Dhammas, and how to be aware of those Dhammas in those different factors of the mind, the thought processes of the mind. There is one group called the Nivarnas. The Nivarnas, hindrances. Sometime back I was discussing about what is called the fetters. Fetters are very strongly bound negative defilements of the mind, whereas the Nivarnas are relatively, say, weakly bound. They're not bound very strongly. Your mind is not very much, say, fettered by or trapped by the negative defilements. So that kind of defilements, which are quite often affect our meditation. And that's why they're called nivarnas, or obstacles, or the screens. So which will come in the way when you want to focus, when you want to develop your meditativeness, mindfulness, or stillness, or concentration. So these nivarnas or obstacles are these hindrances. They hinder your concentration. They hinder your mindfulness. So in that group of defilements, in that group of hindrances, this guilt and remorse also, it comes. In this group only, say it appears in Buddha's teachings. And Buddha calls it as kukucha. Kukucha means kind of worrisomeness, kind of say guilty feeling or remorse, deeply worrying about. That is what is called remorse. Regretting of not doing something which is supposed to be done. Regretting of doing something which is not supposed to be done. So that is what is the feeling of this kukucha or kukrutya. Kukucha is Pali word. Kukrutya is maybe in all Indian languages, including Sanskrit, you can say kukrutya. That becomes kukucha. What is ku? Ku means like bad or wrong. So that is the meaning of ku. Just like su or sat means the right or good. Su, sujata, sukarma. That means like the good actions, a good birth. That is su, and the opposite is ku. Ku means like bad or wrong or not good. So that is the meaning of ku. Krutya. Krutya means like like doingness. So kukrutya means like wrongdoingness. Sukrutya means the right doingness. So kukrutya becomes kukucha in Pali language. So anything that is wrongly done. What is the meaning of wrongly done? You're supposed to do something, you have not done that. That is also a wrongly done activity. That is also a wrongly done action. You're supposed to do that, but you have not done it. So that is also one wrongdoing. And you are supposed to say not to do something, and you have done it. That is also wrongdoing. So wrongdoingness is has these two versions or two sides. You're supposed to do something which are very good for you, which are very, very relevant at that time. But out of your mindfulness, out of your ignorance, out of your excitement, out of your low mind, out of your low confidence, you have not done it. So that you could not get the proper fruits of that particular action, which are supposed to be the good fruits, the wholesome fruits that you are supposed to get it, and you could not get it. And because of that, you again, when you remember that, you feel bad for it. I would have done it. I could not do that out of my ignorance, out of my unmindfulness. So you feel bad for that. But feeling bad for the particular thing that you are supposed to do, but you have not done it, that is also kukrutya or kukucha or guilt or wrong, this remorse or repentance or regretting of not doing something which we are supposed to do. On the other side is like you are not supposed to do it, some unwholesome action, but you have done it again out of your unmindfulness, out of your ignorance, out of your excitement, out of your so many other things like out of your greed, out of your hatred, out of your, of course, they're all rooted in ignorance only, out of your unmindfulness. You have done something which is not supposed to be done. And again, you start repenting over it. You start worrying about it. You start, say, developing deep worry. That is what is called remorse. Remorse means deeply worrying, deeply regretting. It completely, that thought of worry, thought of guilt, thought of why I have done this or why I have not done this. That kind of thought or that emotion, if that completely occupies your mind, then it becomes remorse. So in that way, the guilt multiplied is worry, the worry multiplied or intensified is your remorse. If these things get intensified, the guilt becomes worry, worry becomes remorse. Okay. So in that way, we can understand the definition of your guilt and remorse. So which is not supposed to be done, that is done. Which is supposed to be done, but it is not done. And those thoughts of not done that, or not done that, or done that which is not supposed to be done. So that kind of emotion, that kind of feeling bad for the past thing that happened, which is not supposed to happen. So that kind of feeling is your kukrutya or kukucha or guilt or remorse. And again, Buddha says, always he attaches what is called uddacha along with this kukucha. Uddacha means restlessness. The mind is not like say calm. The mind is not settled down. The mind is simply, the thoughts are flying here and there. The thoughts are dispersed or flying or jumping here and there. So that is what is the state of restlessness. That in Pali it is called uddacha. Just like an example, one simile. So if you throw a stone on one heap of ash, the ash particles, they start flying here and there. In the same way, the mind is being hit by one remorse thought or one guilt thought. Then the mind starts flying. The thoughts start flying here and there. So if there is kukucha, if there is some worrisomeness in the mind, then the mind becomes restless. The mind The thoughts will start flying here and there. The mind becomes fickle and restless, and keep moving from one object to other object, from one thought to other thought, very quick succession. The thought starts flying. So that is what is the state of Uddacha. So always Buddha associates this kukucha with Uddacha. When there is guilt, when there is worry, then this restlessness is the natural consequence of this guilt. In that way, guilt is little deeper in its appearance or in its expression, whereas Uddacha is more expressive. You can experience the restlessness of the mind. The worry is little deep. The guilt is little deep. So the deeper worry, the deeper guilt is expressed as restlessness of the mind. When you're experiencing restlessness of the mind, then you can definitely, you can be sure that there is some deep worry, or there is some guilt deep inside, there is some remorse deep inside. That is expressed as restlessness. In that way, you can confirm yourself. So because of this reason, Uddacha is always associated, the restlessness is always associated with this, what is called worry, kukucha, or this guilt and remorse. Okay. So now we'll see some some modern scientific aspects of the different kinds of this guilt that people talk about, and then we will see again the Buddha's version and the different suttas where Buddha talks about this guilt, and what are the remedies again that one should practice, the cures or the remedies that one should think of, or the measures that one should take up to come out of this guilt and worry. That also we will see later. I'm using the word cures here because I'm looking at this worry or this guilt or this remorse in an objective way. Like just like any physical disease, you have the cure for the physical disease. The same way, this mental disease of this kukucha, this worry, I'm just looking this worry in an objective way, and I want to use this word cure or medicine. The measure is like it's like more subjective. The measure is like there a little bit of many things. It's like at least it's a holistic approach of both subjectivity and objectivity. It's like management kind of thing. But if you become more objective, then you can use the word cure. It's okay, it doesn't matter. If you want to call it as measure, you can call it as the different measures or strategies to come out of this worrisomeness or guilt, the feeling of guilt or guilty feeling, or this deep worry, which is called remorse. So the different strategies, the different remedies, the different measures, the different cures, all are same. Okay. So that also we will see. First, we will see from this so-called the modern scientist view, maybe just for a few minutes, because many people are say they can easily relate to some of these aspects of modern science, and then we will take up little bit, say maybe in more detail, we will take up the Buddha's version of how to understand this and also how to handle this variant, what is called remorse. So again, now coming to this, what is called the different kinds of guilt that these scientists talk about, is like they classify these guilts into three kinds, and I see there is some sense in it. So that's why I want to, because the different scientists, different psychologists, different psychotherapists, they have their own view of looking at this guilt in different ways. So one of the approaches, it's okay, I find it more relevant for today's topic. So what are the three different kinds of guilt that generally people talk about? Is one is like the uh, natural guilt. Hmm? So what is this natural guilt? The other one is, they say, okay, let us see that first, the three guilts that they talk about. One is the natural guilt, the second one is the toxic guilt, and the third one is the existential guilt. Hmm? Natural guilt is like what I said. So you are supposed to do something, you have not done it, then you feel naturally that you have not done it, and you feel that repentance, that regret, that kind of little bit of say some shameful thoughts, some regretful thoughts, that kind of thoughts you develop in your mind. That is what is called the natural guilt. And where you're supposed to do something, you have not done this, you're not supposed to do that, you have done it. So as a natural consequence, you develop some kind of shame, some kind of say little bit of worry, little bit of say restlessness. Why I have not done this? That kind of shameful thoughts or worrisome thoughts you develop. That is what is called the natural guilt. And the second one is, if this continues, the natural guilt continues, and if it becomes like more subconscious, it goes deeper and deeper, and if you repeat this kind of say a wrongdoingness, supposed to be done, not done it, not supposed to be done, you have done it, that kind of actions you keep repeating, then it will percolate into your subconscious, then it becomes what is called the toxic guilt, the underlying sense of not being a good person, because again and again you are doing that misdeed. Again and again you are getting trapped into that kind of wrongdoing, that kind of misdeed. Supposed to be done, not doing, not supposed to be done, doing. If that repeats, then you develop some kind of low self-esteem, thinking that you are not a good person. I'm not a good person. So that kind of thought, if it intensifies, then you develop what is called this toxic guilt. That image you develop in your mind that you're not good, you're not a good person. So that is like, say, that is because of the repetition of this first one, the natural guilt, if it repeats again and again, again, and because of the repetition of the misdeeds again and again, that guilt also repeats again and again. Then it becomes what is called, they call it as free floating guilt also. And the more relevant one is the toxic guilt. Toxic guilt or the free floating guilt, that is the next kind of next level of guilt that people talk about. The next one is the existential guilt. What is this existential guilt? So existential guilt, it is like social or political guilt that you develop by looking at the surroundings. Why these people behave like that? And I'm not doing anything to rectify this, correct this, solve this. You feel bad for yourself because you can't do anything for, say, rectifying or correcting the misdeeds that are going around you, that are happening around you. So your own misdeeds, you have not corrected, you have not come out of it, and it multiplies and it becomes a deeper guilt, then it becomes toxic guilt. If there is some kind of misdeeds going on around you, unlawful things, say there is no some kind of justice, the things going on around you. So they're improper, they are like, say, creating a lot of problems for the other people because of a few people, that you are not in a position to correct it or rectify it. Then also the mind develops some kind of guilt or worry or some kind of remorse also. And that is what is called the existential guilt. That is very much there in the very existence. But you are not simply, you are unable to let go it. And that very thought of injustice in the world, it comes again and again, that appears again and again in your mind, and you feel bad for it. And you feel bad for the society, of course, and also about yourself, because you are not in a position to, say, rectify it or solve that problem which is going on around you. So you start blaming, you start feeling bad for yourself. And that is what is called the existential guilt. Hmm. So in that way, so all these things are feeling bad for yourself, feeling bad for yourself because of misdeeds that you have done. That is what is called the natural guilt. And if it percolates because of its repetitiveness, and then you blame yourself as a bad person, you're not a good person, then it becomes a toxic guilt. And you feel you blame yourself because you're not in a position to rectify or solve the injustice or the misdeeds that are happening around you, then it is called the existential guilt. So I see there is some beautiful classification of guilt here in this. So in that way, but the guilt is guilt. It affects you. It creates what is called the intrapersonal harm. It creates harm for yourself. Hmm. So it creates that kind of gloominess. It creates develops a lot of worrisomeness, gloominess, unmindfulness, disinterest in doing the things, anything, losing interest in the life, losing interest in the actions, losing interest in the purpose of the life, and becoming completely unmindful also, losing peace of mind. Mm. So all these things are the anxiety, depression. So these things automatically follow. Mm. So many psychological issues. Again, they are rooted in this kind of the feeling of guilt, the feeling of worrisomeness, dysphoria. There's so many psychological issues. OCD, obsessive and compulsive. Again and again, you fall into the trap of that guilty feeling, that worrisomeness. That is what is called OCD, obsessive and compulsive disorder, both in your actions and in your thoughts. Only those negativities, only those negative thoughts, they keep on pressurizing you, pushing you, forcing you, and you get trapped into that. In that way, so many psychological disorders also, they're rooted in this guilty feeling. But if they are taken in a positive way, then they act as like they will help you to grow. For example, this natural guilt. If you have this natural guilt, you have done something is not supposed to be done. When you take it in a very cautious way, then next time you avoid it. That kind of say that mild guilt, it's okay actually. It is good in a way. That mild level guilt of I have done something which is not supposed to be done. You're conscious, if you're a little intelligent, and if you confess about that, and you say, if you practice some measures of how to come out of it, that I will tell you later, then automatically it will become good for you. Little bit of guilt becomes good for you. Then next time, because next time you avoid it, next time you don't involve in that. So in that way, natural guilt is relatively easy to handle and easy to come out of this natural guilt, whereas the toxic guilt and this what is called the existential guilt, they're relatively stronger. It's difficult to come out of this toxic guilt. So one should not allow the natural guilt to become the toxic guilt. One should not allow this natural guilt to become the deeper or the more stronger guilt, that is your toxic guilt. And also ignorantly reacting to the world's problems is also the main reason for your existential guilt. Understanding that the human world, it has full of say discrimination, injustice. That is what is the nature of the human world. We can't fix the whole human world. Even the Buddhas, Samma Sambuddhas, they could not establish absolute peace, absolute wisdom, absolute justice in this human world. That is the limitation of this human. Understanding the limitations of this world and working on one's own mind and purifying the mind and developing the mind and transcending the mind from this humaneness. If that kind of understanding, maturity is there in your mind, then one can come out of this existential guilt. Okay, so in that way, of course, when we will discuss all the different measures later So, but I'm telling you about the intensity of these different guilts: natural guilt, the toxic guilt, and the existential guilt. Okay, so that is about the guilts. And what are these different psychological treatments, or these the treatment from other traditions, other religions? Of course, they talk about letting go, how to let guilt go. Mm. So then, what is called guilt busting attitude, just like stress busting attitude, there's something called guilt busting attitude. So it's like completely, so one kind of say positive people, they simply let go the things. No, they don't multiply the guilt at any level. Or those who are very workaholic or say goal oriented, such people also, they simply let go the guilt. Or whatever happened is happened, past is past. Okay, what next? So that kind of attitude, that kind of positive confidence. So that attitude is called the guilt busting attitude. Hmm. So that is possible when you recognize the essential goodness of the human existence. If you look at the human existence in a negative way, then you can't recognize the goodness of the human existence. Then coming out of guilt is relatively tough, relatively difficult. Again, there is one wise man, he talks about, he gives one simile, one example. There are two monasteries, or two, say, Christian monasteries, or some monasteries. One always talks about the sin, you are a sinner, uh, something about sin and how to fix the sin. That's what that approach, always they were bothered about that negative approach. And in another center, they always bothered about the inherent divineness, inherent goodness of all beings. So somehow one of them escapes from each of these monasteries, and that fellow who escapes, who indulges in all the worldly sensual things, and he felt very guilty. That sinfulness, so I am sinner, that kind of negative thought, it multiplies in his mind. So then he could not settle in that center, and he became a sinner. Actually, he became one antisocial element because of that very thought, and he could not come out of that thought. But in the other monastery center, where that forgiveness becomes, say, that forgiving because of understanding the inner goodness or inherent goodness of each and every being, that forgiveness becomes easy when you realize the inner, say, goodness of each and every person. At the same time, of course, the sin and how to remove that sin also, one should have that understanding. But if you fall into the extremes of either goodness, either too much positive thinking or too much negative thinking, there is a risk of, say, developing guilt. The too positive also, what happens? You may forgive, but again and again you may repeat same mistake. Okay, this time I have done again. So I'll just forgive again. Unmindfully can involve in some negative say, things, because you develop that kind of overconfidence of coming out of that negative situation, and there is a chance of again and again. So that's the reason why one should not be too much positive also. At the same time, one need not be too much negative also. If you become too much negative, then, so if you do it once, then that guilt becomes stronger. You can't forgive yourself. Then you can't. Then you will avoid the company of the right people who are developing their minds, and then you may get trapped into a negative group or negative situations. In that way, too much positivity or too much negativity also will not. So that understanding of the nature of guilt and being mindful, being cautious, being aware of each and every moment of life, aware of the future goals, and let go of the past, learning something from the past, and having an eye on the future goal, living in the present moment. That with that balance is the best approach. Though some positive religions or traditions, they emphasize so much on positive thinking, but there's a risk of forgiving again and again and making the mistake again and again. That is the limitation of too much positive thinking. And too much negative thinking, too much looking at your own guilt and thinking it as a sin, that will multiply your guilt. It will not help you to forgive yourself. Again, the too much negativity also, negative approach also of looking at the guilt as a sin, looking at the wrongdoings as sin, and worrying about it too much is also not a good idea. So somewhere in between, what is called that mindfulness, what is called the wholesome feelings, cultivating the wholesome feelings like metta, karuna, mita, upekha, cultivating the wholesome confidence through what is called chanda, virya, chitta, vimamsa, cultivating the right understanding, correctly understanding, you see. So this is unwholesome, this is wholesome. So let me cultivate wholesome, let me give up this unwholesome. This is unwholesome because this leads to unwholesome results, which is nothing but suffering. This is impermanent. There's no need to get attached to this impermanent pleasure or impermanent happiness. This is ugly. This is loathsome. There's no need to see beauty and get attached to this. So this kind of correct understanding also will make you very discreet. What is called that discretionary wisdom of doing what, of not doing something, not doing what. That kind of discretionary wisdom also you develop. Then you don't fall prey to unwholesome actions. And once you protect yourself by not indulging in unwholesome actions, then definitely you are free from guilt and worry and remorse. Don't have that wisdom, then only you indulge in unwholesome actions. Because you indulge in unwholesome actions, its repercussions, that is your guilt and remorse, automatically happens. If you are preventing it by understanding it, then how can you expect kukucha? How can you expect? How can you end up in what is called remorse? So in that way, one should be one should develop these four faculties based on this. If you become more aware, and then definitely you will understand this has to be done, this has not to be done. If you are more wholesome in your feelings with metta, karuna, mudita, upekha, then you definitely not indulge in anything that makes other people unhappy or other people suffer. So because of this thing, so the different techniques given by Buddha, say Buddha talks about to come out of this kukucha. Buddha talks about say having strong faith in the teachings of Buddha. Because of that, this kind of Dhamma talks, listening to Dhamma talks, reading Dhamma subjects, and then developing strong faith in the teachings, which will say help you to orient towards the right things, the wise things, and the right things. It will help you to trod in the right path. It will give you the instructions, the directions to lead the life in a proper way. Reading scriptures, having faith, and developing all the punya kriyas, having this generous mind. Stinginess leads to definitely suffering and guilt and some kind of remorse also. And practicing shila, the morality. So why all this morality, the moral precepts, killing out of your ignorance, out of your unmindfulness, out of your insensitivity, you kill something, you let us say, you kill some animal, let us say. Then after that you feel that repentance. Oh, why I have killed? I would not have killed. So that is what is called guilt. So when you understand that non-killing is a good precept, I should practice this precept of not killing, then where is the guilt? Where is repentance? Where is suffering? Where is remorse? Is it not so? In the same way, not stealing. After stealing or after cheating, definitely I would not have done that. That kind of thought will definitely arise. But when you are practicing the precept, when you have understood the precept and started practicing, So by practicing this non-killing, I will not end up in guilt and remorse. By practicing this non-stealing, I will end up in, say, I will be free from guilt and remorse. And even the sexual misconduct, not say uh, uh, loyal to the partner, cheating the partner. So that also makes you feel guilty. Oh, I have cheated. I am not loyal. I have promised, but I'm not loyal. So that kind of giving promises and breaking the promises, that also leads to a lot of guilt and worrisomeness. And especially in this kind of sensual, say, gratification, sense gratification, sensual pleasure gratification, also a lot of guilt comes because you are when the cheating is involved, when hiding and cheating and is involved, then also the guilt comes. That's why breaking the promises, cheating, hiding, being hypocrite, all these things also lead to what is called the guilt and the remorse. Hmm. And also lying. Lying involves again breaking the promises. That also is there in the lying actually. Uh, false speech, false speech. Michha vacha, not samavacha. Michha vacha means the wrong speech. If you have speak lies, then you feel bad for your lies. That feeling bad is nothing but guilt. And if you speak sometimes harshly, also after that you feel bad. I have shouted at them unmindfully, like an animal. So in that way, you feel bad for it. That's why even the harsh speech, God says that it is wrong speech. And backbiting, if you backbiting means create some kind of rift between two people by talking against them, by talking against them. With one person you talk against his friend, and with a friend you talk against this person, and create some rift between those two people. Then after that you feel bad. What I have done? I have created unnecessary problem between these two people, which I would not have done. That kind of backbiting also creates a lot of what is called guilt and worrisomeness. So in that way, by practice and of course taking intoxicants also, the people will they will accuse me, they will blame me, they will criticize me. The fear of criticism is actually one of the reasons why we develop guilt. So they criticize me. It's not good for me, but I have done it, and that self-criticism also start. So all these things are five precepts. If you understand correctly, then you will not become the prey for guilt. You will not fall into this trap of guilt and remorse. These are the preventive measures. So by practicing, say, these five precepts, by having faith in the teachings, by having faith in the company of wise people or the say wholesome people, by having that faith, sangha or the group of good people, in the teachings, having faith in the dhamma, the right teachings. So in that way, that faith and that generous mind, if you are too stingy, also definitely it creates a lot of guilt. You have and you are not in a position to say share with the others, and you are not in a position even to use it for yourselves. That kind of stinginess is also there among people. Then it creates a lot of what is called the guilt. Definitely, after some time, when you're losing it without your say, because you have to lose everything, your body, mind also you are losing. At that time, you are losing all that you have stored, all that you have hoarded. Then you feel a lot of what is called that guilt. What I have done? Simply I have hoarded so much, but now I am losing everything. Now I am living all these things. That time mind develops a lot of guilt. So to come out of this, all these punya kriyas of including faith, teachings, in the association of right people, Buddha's teachings. So then and having faith in this Shila, the moral precepts, and practicing them with faith and with understanding. And meditation, all kinds of meditation that you are learning in different levels. Awareness meditation, the right view awareness, the right view wholesome feelings like Metta Karuna Mito, the right view confidence, like Chanda Virya Chitta Vimamsa, like right view these perceptions, like Asubha Asanya, Asubha Anicca, Asuka, Anatta, this kind of right view perceptions. To develop this kind of core faculties of the mind with these different kinds of right view meditation, then definitely you will be free from this kind of what you call the guilt and remorse. That is what is called bhavana. And again, this respecting the respectables, doing some service. You're supposed to do some service, but you have not done that. Again, you may feel a little guilty. Out of gratitude, I have taken something, but I have not given back. That also creates guilt. I've taken something, I have not shown gratitude and respect, but it's called apachana. That also creates guilt. Then patidana and pattanam. This is also very important. Many times, when you lose your departed, when you lose your relatives or friends which are very close to you, that also develops a lot of guilt. Because of that reason only what is called this Punyanamodana, this Patidana programs are always organized. My father, my mother, my grandfather, my brother, my good friend, he has done so much to me. My uncle, my co-relatives, who is very close to you now, he is no more. But I could not do anything to them. Then this is one remedy. What is the remedy? So all right, now in his name, I do some dana, I do some charity. And that merit, let it be shared by him wherever he is there, let him get the merits of this and let him be happy, let him be liberated. That is the best thing that you are doing. So that feeling also gives you a lot of solace, lot of say comfort, soothing. It soothes all your guilt. It gives that solace to you, your mind. So because of that reason, only all these punyanamodana practices are very much relevant now to come out of the guilt. So, day after tomorrow we have this punyanamodana program. My mother's death anniversary is tomorrow. Even though I have renunciated, I have given up everything, but still, it is good for me to practice this punyanamodana in the name of my mother, doing some wholesome actions and sharing the merits with my departed mother. Even for the renunciates, it's good because it will help us to come out of some kind of little bit of guilt, whatever guilt, even though the renunciates have. Definitely, the householders should practice this kind of punyanamodana. So it will free your mind from a lot of guilt with regard to this kind of situations. They have given so much to me, but I have not given. That kind of thought is also leads to what is called the guilt and remorse. But to come out of that, this punyanamodana is one more measure, one more step, one more method. And there is something called confessions. So with some respectable ones or with some close people, expressing your mistakes, expressing your misdeeds, expressing your wrongdoings, what you are supposed to do that you have not done, what you have done that you are not supposed to do. Those things, if you frankly open up yourself and express yourself and vent out all that hidden pressure, then you become free. Then you will be relaxed. That is what is called confession. Of course, very wise people, they confess to the whole, they don't mind confessing to many people or confessing to the whole society or confessing to the whole world. But everybody should at least not keep that kind of guilt or guilty feeling or that misdeed or that feeling of wrongdoingness within yourself. You should vent it out. express it out. At least with one person whom you trust. That is the first step. Then if you are there enough, if you are confident enough, then you can express it to so many other people also. Then if you're more confident, then you can share it with the whole, we can express it to the whole world also. Then the more you express, the more free you become from this guilt and remorse. If that is also difficult, you can write down all that nonsense, all that toxicity, all that's going on in your mind because of that guilt or because of that misdeed or because of that wrongdoingness. Just write it down in detail and you just burn it. That also relieve your mind from this guilt, at least to some extent. Then it gives you some confidence to share with some person, one trustworthy, trustful person. So in that way, one can come out of guilt with these different kinds of confession, different kinds of writing down, different kinds of punya kriyas. Punya kriyas are always have that power, that potential to free your mind from the guilt. That's why they are punya. Punya is always is the substitute for whatever papa you have done, whatever sin you have done, whatever misdeed you have done. So the punya will substitute it. Punya will counter it. That's why they're called punya kriyas. Much of the papa, much of the evil, or much of the sin is because of guilt. Once you have done some misdeed, but again and again you are repeating that misdeed in your mind because of your guilt and remorse, because of that guilty feeling, you are multiplying it. That means you are multiplying that sin, multiplying that papa. If you substitute or if you counter it with punya or punya kriya, then you are nullifying it, you are reducing it and you are nullifying it. And then you will come out of that sin and will come out of that guilty feeling of that sin. That is the beauty of all the punya kriyas. And if you multiply it, if you do it again and again, and if you perfect it with an intention of liberating completely, with an intention of becoming an arahant, completely enlightened and liberated person, then it becomes a parmi, a perfect punya is parmi, a perfection. Simply call it as perfection, but it is nothing but a perfect punya, perfect mind purification. Mind purification from what? Mind purification from your guilt, from your misdeed, from your remorse feeling, from your ill feeling, bad feeling of doing something, some bad action. So that kind of guilty feeling you can completely erase, remove by practicing the punya more and more. And with an intention of being liberated, if you practice these punyas, then they become parmis and they remove the guilt completely. So that is the power of this intention of becoming liberated, getting nibbana, becoming fully enlightened. With that intention, if you involve in your punyas, then they become parmis and they will completely eradicate your guilty feeling. And that's why in the Indian masters, many Indian masters, they completely emphasize on the goal of nibbana, goal of liberation, ultimate liberation. If people understand this, deep inside it, they carry this seed of this ultimate goal of human existence, that is nibbana, then such people can be completely free from lot of guilt. They develop tremendous ability to let go the things. Because of that reason, the Indian spiritualism is always revolves around this concept of complete freedom, achieving this complete freedom through complete wisdom of this what do you call, understanding the mind, mental processes, the mind, the thought processes, understanding body and mind, and transcending body and mind, and liberating body and mind and becoming completely free. So that kind of ultimate goal is very much percolated in your psyche. Then coming out of this guilt and the remorse becomes easier because you will start discovering the different ways and means to come out. Like all these things that I explained, the confession, the meritorious action, start involving or start practicing these meritorious actions like Punyanamodana, practicing precepts, having faith, learning scriptures, learning Dhamma, attending this kind of Dhamma programs. All these things will start opening up your mind, start purifying, cleaning your mind. And once that cleaning process starts with the so-called wholesomeness, then the unwholesome repetition in the form of guilt that will go away. In that way, these are the curative measures, practicing moral precepts and all. It is the preventive measures, then confession, punyanamodana, all these things are curative measures. So in that way, practice both these preventive measures and curative measures, then automatically you can be free from this guilty feeling. And once this guilty feeling, kukucha, is reducing in your mind, then the mind, the restlessness, the mind jumping from one object to other object, one thought to other thought, it will also stop reducing. Then your ability to concentrate on your work, concentrate on your meditation, concentrate on your ideas, it becomes easy. Then it will help you in the material progress also, worldly progress also. Then it will help you to progress spiritually also, because that uddacha, that restlessness, that jumping of the mind reduces, calmness increases, stillness increases, concentration increases. That concentration, that stillness, it will lead to creativity, it will lead to creative actions, enthusiastic actions in the worldly life, and also it will lead to enthusiastic meditation also. And you can progress spiritually also. In that way, kukucha is related to uddacha. So when you stop kukucha, you stop, reduce guilt and this remorse, then mental concentration, mind control becomes more and more easy. So in that way, so we have to understand these different causes and the measures of this deep-rooted feeling of guilt, remorse, and of course, Buddha classifies this under this nivarana of this uddacha and kukucha, by developing tranquility, by developing equanimity, this, developing mental this jhana factors, then this kukucha can be removed. That's what he says. That means, like, when you progress in this mindfulness, when you progress in this concentration, then automatically, slowly, you can erase the feeling of guilt and all. That is also Buddha recommends. That also Buddha recommends. Of course, that you are doing in your different levels of meditation. So in that way, this Buddha talks about this nivarnas in so many suttas. He gives the example, simile of say a pond which is stirred by the water of the pond is stirred by, say, the heavy winds, completely agitated, the heavy winds have disturbed, swaying these waves, completely full of waves. In that kind of pond, the water is not still and you can't see the reflection of your face in that pond. In the same way, the mind is completely filled with this feeling of guilt, then it becomes completely restless. As I was telling you, just like the ash particles, they start swaying, they start flying when you throw a stone. Because of this thought of guilt, then all these thoughts, they start swaying and start flying. So then you can't see the realities of the mind. You can't calm down the mind. So that will hinder your worldly progress, worldly actions, and it will hinder your meditation, your spiritual action also. So because of that reason, so handling guilt, which is the cause for your restlessness, is very, very crucial. And of course, there are so many things also with regard to guilt that one should know. And it's a fetter also. This uddacha is a strong fetter, and it's like completely stilling the mind, completely giving up this uddacha is possible only for the arahants. a little bit of restlessness will be there, even up to the level of anagami. So that much deep is your guilt. At least there will be some existential guilt. You may feel bad for something that's happening around you. You may feel bad for yourself deeply. The toxic guilt also may be there somewhere. So to come out of this, one should take up this integrated approach or this holistic approach of handling the mind. And the very, very immediate approaches are confession and practicing these meritorious actions. Completely understand these meritorious actions and give 100% to these meritorious actions. Then you can be free from this guilt. Okay, I think this much is enough for today. And if you have some questions, you can ask questions. And I strongly recommend this Pattidana and Pattanamodana, that is Punyanamodana thing. And then and confession. Just speak out whatever that is going on in your mind, that bad feeling, that ill feeling. Speak out with at least one person whom you trust. Confession and Punyanamodana. I strongly recommend to come out of this guilt. Okay. So I think with this, now we can open the session for questions and answers, interactions. And if you have some questions, you can ask. Any questions?
Namaste, Banteji.
Yes,
No questions yet in the chat, Banteji. Thank you.
And in the chanting that we have chanted today, there Buddha says, observing the mind processes as it is, not reacting. Now the thought of guilt has arisen in my mind. Now it's like, say, it stopped. Now the mind is free from the thoughts of guilt. That way, observing the mind, what's happening, what's going on in the mind, that will also make you more objective, more equanimous, more balanced, more empty. And that kind of Dhammanupassana of the Nivarnas, whether they have arisen or not arisen, whether they have disappeared or not disappeared, whether they have not yet arisen. In that way, critically looking at the mind for these guilty thoughts, guilty feelings, in an objective way, by stepping back. That is what is the Dhammanupassana approach, Anupassana approach, mindfulness approach. That is also very, very powerful way of coming out of these guilty thoughts, guilty feelings. When you become more and more objective of your own emotions, your own thoughts, especially the negative thoughts like these nivarnas, this restless, this guilty feeling, this kind of remorse feeling, when you become more objective, then automatically they lose their strength. That is the beauty of this mindfulness technique. That is the beauty of this Dhammanupassana, observing the Dhamma as the Dhamma, the refined thoughts of the mind as the refined thought. That critically observing the mind, that is Dhammanupassana. Superficially observing the mind is Chittanupassana. Critically observing the mind for both the negative factors and the positive factors of the mind. If you critically observe, then it is Dhammanupassana. So the Dhammanupassana of this guilty feeling, of this Uddhacha Kukucha also, if you learn, you observe it as it is, like say what Buddha says. Santangva ajjatang Uddhacha Kukuchan, Akti me ajjatang Uddhacha Kukuchanti Pajana. Santangva ajjatang Uddhacha Kukuchan, Akti me ajjatang Uddhacha Kukuchanta Pajana. Yatacha Anupannasa. So it's not at Uppanna, it's not at generated in the mind. or it is supposed to be generated now. It is so that kind of critical analysis, how it is generating, at what stage that thought of kukucha is there in my mind, whether it is disappearing, whether it has completely disappeared, whether the mind is completely free from this thought of kukucha. And that way, just like you observe the breath, now the breath has started, now it is going on, now the in-breath has stopped, now there is a gap, now there is transition from in-breath to out-breath. The out-breath has started. In that way, critically, when you are observing the breath, then your concentration, then your objective concentration increases. The same way, critically, you are observing the thought of kukucha, let us say, the thought of guilty feeling, then that thought becomes very, very weak. That thought, it will not affect you because you have separated yourself from thought. Then the intensity, then the repetitiveness of the thought, it will automatically reduce. So that way, this Dhammanupassana of kukucha, observing the kukuchas critically, the thought as a thought, very critical way, is also one of the beautiful techniques of coming out of this guilty feeling. So in that way, mindfulness techniques, the concentration stilling techniques, the wholesome feeling techniques, and all these different meditations that you are practicing in these different levels will definitely come to your rescue in handling the guilty feelings also. So in addition to that, there are two important things I strongly recommend is like confession. Speak out, don't hide, don't cover. The more you hide, the more you cover, then the more pressure you create for yourself. Then it will burst out, then it will lead to so many other ill consequences. The more you express, the more you become free. So that is what is one thing. Being honest and being truthful, not to be hypocrite. All these things come under this. And the next one is practicing countering these sins, countering these negative things, countering these misdeeds with the wholesome things, the meritorious things, like your punya kritas. That is the most effective thing. And one thing that is very practical, that is very applicable, that I can suggest, I can recommend as a teacher is like practicing this punyanamodana, sharing the merits. After doing merits, you should learn how to share the merits to the departed relatives and to the whole world also through this punyanamodana. So that will also reduce a lot of guilty feeling and this remorse feeling. Okay. If you don't have questions, we'll conclude with the chant.
Namaste Banteji.
Yes, sir.
There's a question from Bhavani Chandrasekhar Banteji. They're asking Vandami Banteji, what is the difference between suttas and similes? Banteji. What is the difference between suttas and similes?
Suttas means like the sutras, the discourses, the teachings of Buddha in the form of discourses. They're called sutras or suttas. Similes means like some examples. Sometimes Buddha gives in his discourses to make the people understand clearly. Like see this example I told you, like this this still water in a pond, it is disturbed by the heavy winds. They simply create a lot of agitation in the water. And because of that agitation of movement of the water in the form of waves, swaying of waves, then there will be a lot of disturbance in the stillness of the water and you can't see your face. That means the reflection you can't see. That means you can't see your mind correctly when the mind is full of these restlessness thoughts or these worrying thoughts, because the mind is completely disturbed. When it is free from that kind of restlessness and worrisomeness, then the mind becomes still, then you can see the things as they are. Then you can see, then you can hear the things very correctly, then you can say experience the sensations very correctly, you can experience the breaths correctly, completely observe, because the mind becomes very still and very sensitive also. That kind of sensitivity, stillness will lead to concentration. And then you can realize the ultimate jhanas, the ultimate insights also. So in that way, Buddha used to give some examples, the worldly examples, to make the people understand about the stages of, say, stillness, the stages of concentration, stages of mind development, mind purification. Again, Buddha, there are so many, thousands of similes, like say, so when the water is, say, having lot of, when it is mixed with some colors, some paint, some colors, again you can't see the reflection of your face in that water. So Buddha gives this example. When the mind is full of, say, greed, desire, full of say, sensual desire, whatever desire, full of desires, then the mind is always colored with those desires. Then the mind is not free, mind is not still. It is just like looking your reflection in a colored water. Then there also you can't see the reflection. That means the mind is not pure, mind is not clean. So mind is not still, mind is not sensitive, mind is focused. So then you can't progress in mindfulness or meditation, concentration. So that kind of simile, that kind of example to make you understand the effect of this sensual desire on your mind, how it affects your mental stillness, mental purity, mental concentration. So he gives the example of this mixing colors, mixing paints in the water. And also he gives the example of, say, if the mind is full of hatred, hateful thoughts, anger thoughts, then the mind is like boiling. It's like boiling water. You can't again see your reflection in boiling water. So in the same way, when the mind is full of anger, then you can't see, say, the purity of the mind, the calmness of the mind will not be there. And you can't see the realities of the mind, realities of the body, the inner, say, the jhanas you can't get, the vipassana knowledge, just you can't get insights, you can't see the insights. In that way, Buddha used to give some examples, some similes to make people understand about the negativities of the mind, the positivities of the mind, wholesome things of the mind, the unwholesome things of the mind. So that kind of examples like this, water filled with the colors, water filled with water by the boiling water, water agitated by the wind, for this restlessness and for this worrisomeness, water agitated by the wind. That kind of examples, they're called similes. And the teachings of Buddha, the discourses given by Buddha, so many thousands of discourses, the discourse on, let us say. Now Dhamma talks many times, we take some discourse, some sutta, and we discuss about that discourse, what Buddha has presented in that discourse. So that kind of some presentation given by Buddha for some particular audience in some particular time. So that kind of presentation is called a sutta or a discourse. And the different examples that Buddha gave in those discourses to make people understand about the concept that he's talking about is the simile. Okay, next question.
Namaste, Banteji. Next question is from Vijay Ranpise, sir, Banteji. He's asking, the guilt is very old. Is it possible to remove?
Guilt is very old.
Yes, Banteji. Is it possible to remove?
It is possible. Stronger the guilt, older the guilt. Sorry. And you have to put forth more effort to remove that. The guilt is little lighter, little recent guilt. Then removing it may be relatively easy. The guilt is little older, because older guilts always they multiply because of that. Say that time lapse. The multiplication is also relatively it will be more, and because of that multiplication, it might have become little stronger also. So to remove that, what is the plan? All these different things I told you. practicing these different punya kriyas, practicing this confession, practicing meditations, different kinds of meditations, approaching the mind with this integrated way, and letting go of everything of the past with this very confident, uh, say, this punya kriyas, which will make you feel confident to let go the past and work on the future by being in the present. So that way, and with this strong faith in this path, strong faith in these meritorious actions, strong faith in confession, if you work strongly, then the strong guilty thoughts, they will go away. However old they may be, however strong they may be. That's what is this law of cause and effect. That's what is this karmic, the beauty, the great principle, the most powerful, the great principle of good begets good, bad begets bad. The wrong causes lead to the wrong results. When you substitute the wrong causes from the right causes, then you will get the right results. That kind of law of karma, law of cause and effect, you understand. And based on that, if you work intentfully, enthusiastically, with all intelligence, with all wisdom, if you work on these punyas, which can counter these papas, which can counter these wrong deeds or misdeeds, which have created guilt in you. If you work on that, then automatically you can substitute, you can remove the wrong with the right, the bad with the good. That understanding also should be very, very clear. Every wrong can be removed by good. That's what we do. That's what arhants do. That's what this path talks about. Anguli Mala, he has done, say, notorious things. Then, by cultivating the mind, by doing the opposite, then he practiced a lot of generosity, a lot of metta, a lot of good things, a lot of patience. Even though people started throwing stones at him and created a lot of problem for him. So he, out of a lot of patience, it's all the consequence of my evil actions that I have done previously. Now I am getting the fruits of my evil actions. I will face it. I will, with smile, I will face it. With that metta, with that understanding, that patience. So he came out of all the wrong consequences of his previous wrong actions. So he became one supremely enlightened person, arhants. And even the Bodhisattva, he has done a lot of misdeeds in some lives. He indulged in sexual misconduct also, lying, killing, cheating, intoxication. But he just spoke out his mistakes. He accepted his mistakes. Many people, they're not in a position to accept their mistake. That will again build their guilty feeling. All right, I did it. What is wrong in accepting our mistakes? Oh, what other people think, what these people think in that way. If you keep on worrying about not speaking out truth, of not accepting your mistakes, then it becomes a bigger pressure inside you. Then it creates more guilt, more remorse. The human being is error, human is error, they're bound to make mistakes. Even Buddha did it. When he took intoxicants, he accepted it, he confessed it. When he killed, he confessed it. When he indulged in sexual, he did, of course, I indulged in this, I confess it. By confession, the mind becomes very sensitive and it will take a decision that in future I should not do that. If you honestly confess. In that way, confession, being frank, being honest, being truthful, not being hypocrite, not hiding, this will definitely help you to come out of the guilt. And this understanding of law of cause and effect, and involving enthusiastically in the punya kriyas, all these things also will make you to come out of this guilty feeling. And there's something called hiri and uttappa. That shame, the hiri means like moral shame. That moral shame is different from this guilty shame. The shame that comes out of guilt is negative. The moral shame of protecting yourself, not doing some misdeeds, that is what is called hiri, moral shame. And moral shame, again, it always associated with moral fear. It's called vattappa. So they will protect you. If you have moral fear and moral shame, they will protect you. If you have this hiri and vattappa, they are wholesome, they protect you. So when you have this guilty fear and guilty shame, the fear comes from guilt, the shame comes from guilt. They should be converted to this hiri and vattappa. The guilt should be converted. The kukucha, the uddacha kukucha should be converted to hiri and vattappa. How it is possible? It is possible with these things, by openness, by frankness, by honesty, by truthfulness, by confession, by counseling, by having belief in the teachings and the teachers, the right teachers, of course, and the right teachings and the right association, having faith in those things, having faith in this, what is called the meritorious actions, moral precepts, and practicing them with understanding, with enthusiasm. Then what happens? This guilt and remorse and restlessness, they will convert into that what is called that guilty fear, guilty, the shame from that guilt, the fear from that guilt. They will be converted into moral fear, moral shame. They will protect you. Then your mind becomes more, say, careful, more mindful, more discreetly of not doing the wrong things, doing right things. It becomes more sharp, more alert. So that is good actually. If you develop, oh, if I do this, then the people will laugh at me, they'll blame me, the police or the legal system will have some kind of influence. So it will create problem for me. Because I told you the human world, it has its own limitations. You can't be completely say I am also nothing and you're also nothing, so we will become one. You can't say, you can't think at the ultimate level. This wall is also empty. There is emptiness everywhere. This wall is also empty. I am also empty, and I go and hit the wall. In that way, simply at the intellectual level, if you realize the final truths, if you think about the absolute truths, and if you behave, then you create harm for yourself by hitting the wall, thinking that wall is also nothing, wall is also empty. I am also ultimately the same way. There are some few legal restrictions in the world. There are a few moral restrictions in the world. That one should have. One should have that understanding. Morally, what am I? What is my role? What is my ability? What is my inability? What is my situation? How I should behave with this person, that person, this senior, this junior, this elderly, this uh, superior, this inferior. So that kind of awareness and understanding one's own situation, position, abilities, inabilities, the legal laws, the moral laws of that particular area, particular society. The legal laws here, I'm here near Himalayas. The people, the moral laws, it may be different from the Indian laws or maybe Western laws. So I should understand the people here, and accordingly I should behave. So in that way, understanding the legalities, understanding the moralities of the situation, and behaving accordingly, that will also help us to create this kind of true, correct moral fear and moral shame, the true hiri and uttappa, and not fall into the immoral things or the unwholesome things or the things that are not suitable for that situation, for that area, for that say society. Then also you can protect yourself from guilt and remorse. So now coming to your question, already that you have done that some very old some misdeed that is creating some kind of guilt in my mind even today. So for that, for everything there is a solution. Please understand. For everything there is for every problem there is a solution. Not just one solution. There are hundreds of solutions. Because we are stuck in the problems. That's the main reason why we develop lot of it. The problem-oriented thinking will make you to think again and again about the problem only, and that is what is guilt. So if the person wants to come out of it, then he should develop what is called that solution-oriented. All right, this is the problem, and these are the different solutions. And how best I can practice this solution? Then automatically the problem, it becomes weakens, it becomes weaker and weaker, and it disappears. So in that way, every problem, every misdeed, every feeling, every guilty feeling of a misdeed, it disappears, it dissolves by practicing its solution, by countering it with the opposite practice, by countering it with the positive practice. That is what is the spirit of this law of karma, that all of you should understand. This law of karma, it should make you to develop that spirit of countering the sin with, say, what is called the merit, countering the papa with punya. So that spirit, if you develop by correctly understanding this law of cause and action, good begets good, bad begets bad. This is first half of this law of action, reaction, law of cause. The second thing is, every bad can be substituted by good. That is the second aspect of this law of cause and effect. So if these two aspects of law of cause and effect, if you understand, then automatically you'll start getting the solutions in the form of punyakiyas, in the form of truthfulness, in the form of teachers, in the form of dhamma, in the form of confession. So in so many forms you start getting so many solutions. If you understand these two aspects of this spirit of law of cause and effect, what are the two aspects? Of course, good begets good, bad begets bad. This understanding will make you to know what is good and how to practice good, and what is bad and how to avoid bad. That is the first level. Second level is, like, every bad can be substituted by good. Nothing is impermanent in this existence. So bad is also not permanent. Everything is impermanent. So bad is also impermanent. It can be substituted, it can be changed to good by practicing its opposite, like the meritorious action. This is the second aspect of law of cause and effect. If you practice, you understand and practice accordingly, then every problem can be removed, can be substituted, can be countered by the solution. Same thing holds good with this. Misdeeds and the guilt that is developed because of misdeeds, you can easily counter. Honesty is a very powerful policy. We fear, we develop shame, we develop guilt, what other people think, what other people say. But if you're honest, they say, first time they say, the second time they appreciate your honesty. First time they may tease you for your misdeed, but the second time they appreciate you for your honesty. That is the power of truth. That is the power of honesty. Many people, they don't understand the power of honesty. That's why they can't speak out, they can't confess, they can't be truthful. So if you understand again the power of truth, power of confession, power of honesty. Honesty is the best policy, they say. That is absolutely right. Then guilt can be easily tackled. All kinds of guilt can be easily tackled. Okay. Okay. Next question.
Namaste, Bhanteji. No more questions, Bhanteji.
Okay, we'll conclude, right?
Yes, Bhante. Thank you.
Namo tassa bhagavato arhato samma sambuddhassa bhavatu sabba mangalam rakkantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sanghanubhavena sada sotti bhavantu te sukhi bhaveyang nidduko ahang nicca ahang viya idacha me sukhi hontu majjata chatavedino imam hi gammante dhamme satta hontu sukhi sada tato paranchara jesu chakkavale sujantano sadhu 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 sukhi hontu. May all of you be happy, healthy, and peaceful. May all beings also be happy. Sukhi ho.